What up, everybody? Good morning and TGIF. Happy Friday morning, everybody. Appreciate you making us a part of your start. If you're already up and at it, whether you're listening to us on the radio dials, 105.1 FM, 790 AM, online, you can stream us up at sportstalk1051.com. You got your smart devices like your Alexa. Just say, Yo, Alexa, play WAYY. Download the app. Take us on the video streams, Instagram, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, the usuals. But happy Friday, everybody. Before we're heading off for the weekend here, what do we have on our game plan? The Hulkster. I know, depending on if you're a wrestling fan or not, but nonetheless, big story. The Hulkster, Hulk Hogan, passing away yesterday at the age of 71. Now, I'm not the biggest wrestling fan out there, okay? I couldn't tell you a whole lot about it. I'm not gonna pretend that I know a lot and such, but, I do know this, that when I was a youngster, when I was a kid, didn't watch it a lot, but when I did, I was a Hulk Hogan fan. I mean, I had the wrestling you remember those, like, stuffed wrestling buddies? Like, I had the Hulk Hogan one, I mean, the original Nintendo game with Hulk Hogan on the cover and such. I mean, Hulk Hogan was if I had to pick a wrestler, it was, uh, it was Hulk Hogan. So, if you are a wrestling fan, because we can't Brandon's not in, he's our wrestling guy. Justice is out of town too, so we can't have our wrestling experts with us. So, I'm gonna count on you, the listeners, right now. If you are or were wrestling fan, is Hogan the GOAT? Is he on the Mount Rushmore? I wanna hear from you. Okay, I wanna hear from you. What are your thoughts on it? Is he on that Mount Rushmore? Send me your Mount Rushmores. Is he the GOAT of the wrestling world and such? I'm genuinely curious because again, I'm not gonna pretend like I'm the expert in this field, but I do know as a youngster, as a kid, I was a Hulk Hogan fan. And honestly, when I still think about wrestling, he's probably if he's not the first, he's one of the very top ones, out there. So, but yeah, definitely some sad news, yesterday. So, today is the final day of his presidency. Mark Murphy, final day for him as president of the Green Bay Packers, the leader of the Green Bay Packers shareholders meeting today. It'll be the transition to Ed Policy as the new president, CEO, et cetera, et cetera. So, we've kind of been teasing about or touching on it a little bit throughout the week here, but since it is today, I want to know from you, Packers fans, what is the lasting legacy of Mark Murphy? What is or what are some of the things that you remember him the most by from his tenure? Like, what's if you had to put a number one on that list? Because there's a few. Let's not kid ourselves. There's a few. But what would you remember him the most of? How will you remember him mostly by? Is it just the draft as the number one thing? It's a recency thing. Is it Titletown? Is it the Lambeau Field expansion with the seats? The Rodgers Favre transition, Rodgers to Love transition and such? So, what will you remember the most about Mark Murphy's tenure as the leader of the franchise? So let me know your thoughts. You can hit me up with a text on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line at 715-830-1912. A few of you have already chimed in. I put it up on my Facebook page last night, so appreciate some of you already chiming in over there. Packers day 2 yesterday, training camp practice. We'll go through some of that. Day 3 coming at you today. So, but we'll go through some of the stuff from day 2 yesterday, some of the comments, some of the reports from reporters out there and that. So, Brewers also back in action tonight as they are going to be, or I should say this afternoon, going to be taking on the Marlins. Remember, it's an early game, 3:10 first pitch. Freddie Peralta back on the mound for the Brewers as they'll begin this series. Don't look ahead to the Cubs series coming up on Monday, but after the off day yesterday, your first place Brewers back in action today. And then you got the Alumni Home Run Derby. So Brandon and myself yesterday made our picks. If you want to check it out, you can listen to the podcast. It's up there on the Man Cave podcast. But with the Alumni Home Run Derby, let's have a little fun with some of our picks here. Who you got? All right, Brewers fans, who you going to pick in the Alumni Home Run Derby coming at you this evening? Bronny, Fielder, Gomez, Yo-Yo, Bill Hall, McGee, Corey Hart, Nyjer Morgan. Those are some of the names on there. Who you going to roll with, though? If you were listening yesterday, I already got my pick. I'm going with Bronny. I'm going with Ryan Braun. But if you want to make your picks, again, reach out, text, social, video streams, all that fun stuff. We'll catch up with Dr. Crow for a little inside the training room. Dr. Crow will be joining us here in just under an hour from now. So we'll chat with him about definitely with, Justin Fields. Seems like if you're a Jets fan, maybe breathing a little sigh of relief and such. But we'll chat about that and more coming up with him just under an hour from now. We also have the AJM Automotive Pump the Brakes Full Throttle coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. And since I am riding solo with this, I will open it up to you, the listeners. If you have any good Pump the Brakes or Full Throttle questions, hey, send those on over. All right, send them on over. I'm all about it. We got some good ones. I'm going to use them. So send those on over as well. So, but that's your game plan for us this Friday morning, again, before we're heading off for the weekend. So got a few different things out there. Again, if you were or are a wrestling fan, is the Hulkster on your Mount Rushmore? Is he the GOAT? If not, if he's not on either one of those, who's ahead in your opinion? Because again, I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert in this field. As a kid, yeah, I was a Hulk Hogan fan, but for me, he probably is. But I know there are plenty more people out there who know more about this area than I do. So send me your wrestling Mount Rushmores. I know we got quite a few listeners who are wrestling fans as such. So, but also the Mark Murphy question I'm throwing out there to you. Mark Murphy's tenure as president's coming to an end today at the shareholders meeting. So how would you view what's his lasting legacy? What's the one thing you will remember the most about Mark Murphy and his tenure as the leader of the Packers? What will you remember the most? Let me know. Hit me up with those thoughts. Okay, so we'll touch on those, and plus look ahead to today's Brewers matchup and the weekend series overall too against the Marlins. I haven't seen anybody really talk about a trap series. I haven't seen that. I don't know if anybody's thinking about that with the Marlins here, but I haven't seen that. So maybe I'm missing it, but I haven't seen that. Again, I hope they don't overlook the Marlins and lose the series before welcoming the Cubbies to town on Monday. But let's get things going here this morning, shall we? We'll take our first quick break and then jump right into it this morning. Dabbling a little bit of everything. Got a little bit of a smorgasbord coming at you. So let's jump right into it. Quick break, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes. 1 week from today, we're going to be at Lake Hallie Golf Course for the 5th annual Kasper Classic. Be broadcasting from over there before teams start to tee off. We'll have a few teams teeing off at that 7:30 tee time slot. So it's going to be coming up here before you know it. Excited. Can't wait to get things going here. But I want to give, again, big shout outs to Lake Hallie Golf Course for hosting us this year, Park Ridge Distributing, Edward Jones, Financial Advisor, Kelsey Nikolai, Carpet City Flooring Center, VFW Post 305, Myron Construction, Dodge, and AJM Automotive, Hy-Vee, Eau Claire, Economy Furniture, Muldoon's Menswear, Home Oasis, Service Master, Chippewa Valley, and then Trillium as well. We also have Alchemist Hot Sauce joining us as a whole sponsor too. So, plus, thank you to our prize donation, raffle donation peeps out there. That includes Chippewa River Industries, Spectrum Industries, the Brewers Awards, and more. The Packers. We've got Economy Furniture donating a chair. We've got Service Master donating some prizes. Shout out to listener Paul yesterday who dropped off a few autographed Robin Yount cards to put in to the raffle over there. So a big thanks to Paul and individuals like him and Rocky and Brandon's mom who are donating a ton of stuff for the raffles that include Country Jam tickets and Leonard Skinner's whiskey, autographed whiskey bottles full of whiskey too. So I mean, tons of people stepping up and helping out this year for the 5th annual classic. So a big thank you to everybody. And if I missed somebody, I apologize. Myron Construction's got a basket they donated as well. So a big thank you to everybody who has done that. And can't wait to get things rolling a week from today at Lake Hallie Golf Course for the 5th annual classic. And we'll see who dons these bigger and better title belts for this year. And well, speaking of title belts too, we did throw out the question with the Hulkster passing away yesterday at the age of 71. Is he the GOAT? Is he the on your Mount Rushmore? If you are a pro wrestling fan, let me know. All right, couple of you chiming in on that very topic. Let me bring up a couple of those responses early this morning. We've got Gary said Mount Rushmore wrestlers, Hulkster because of what he did for the sport, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man Randy Savage. Dave saying for Hogan, despite the fact that I absolutely despise him as both a wrestler and even more so as a human being, I think you have to put him on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling. That being said, not the GOAT. To be the GOAT, you have to have a great combination of mic skills and in-ring skills. And Hogan was about as boring as they come from a wrestling perspective. So, you want to make your picks? I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert in this field, but if you want to send me your picks, please do so. I'm genuinely curious to see where everybody's at on that particular topic. But I want to lead things off here this morning because today is the final day of Mark Murphy, president, leader of the Green Bay Packers, as the shareholders meeting for the Packers is today. It's also the third day of training camp practice and such. But what is the lasting legacy of Mark Murphy? What is it that you will remember the most about Mark Murphy as the leader of the Packers? There's a few different things, but it feels like there is one common, maybe not common, more, how do I want to phrase this? Probably the most popular pick right now, and that is the Titletown District. Sam saying Murphy's laying memory is what he built. He completely surveyor Sam completely transitioned the area around Lambeau into an all-inclusive, family-oriented district that multiple teams and cities have tried to copy from every league in North America. He made Green Bay into a destination area that people from all over the world make their way to Wisconsin nearly every day. Ron Wolf made the NFL keep the Packers in Green Bay. Mark Murphy solidified it. Dave saying kept the winning tradition alive. I think him and Ted Thompson both make a ton, or both take a ton of flack from Packers fans, but at the end of the day, they won the same number of Super Bowls as Bob Harlan and Ron Wolf. Another Dave saying it has to be Titletown for Mark Murphy. He needed to commercialize professional football in Wisconsin, especially Green Bay, to keep it financially stable. I'd say number 2 is his visit to Chippewa Falls to celebrate the Packers tailgate tour with Chippewa River Industries in 2019. So yeah, I think, when you think about Mark Murphy, if I were to rank him or put him in order, I think number 1 would have to be Titletown. Now, I know the draft is a recent thing, but let me throw this out there. Is the draft even coming to Green Bay if Titletown District isn't there? I think you need a Titletown District to kind of kickstart a lot of that stuff. So Titletown District, number 1 for me. That's the everlasting legacy for Mark Murphy. And the changes that area has undergone through the last few years, ever since he first started in early 2008, January of 2008, to where we're at now in 2025. And when he started, you still had Kmart there. You still had, those empty store lots or those big parking lots and such. And now to look at it, it's hard to imagine at times what was there before what's currently there with Titletown District. And I know a lot of fans are maybe not in favor or don't agree with how the Packers have kind of done business the last few years and gotten too corporate or have commercialized it too much and have gotten away from maybe the small town type of thing. But I honestly believe they had to. I too miss the good old days of tailgating in that Kmart parking lot or the Big Lots parking lot, or the Hardee's was over there, and you had Sidelines Bar there, and was it the Ridgeway Roadway Hotel or whatever the heck it was? Those areas. Yeah, I miss it. I have a ton of great memories of tailgating all morning, all day, all night in that Kmart parking lot, or just going to a playoff game and tailgating in that lot. Didn't have tickets to a game, but tailgating and watching the game on a TV as the snow globe game with Seattle just fall, the snow is falling. So many memories. But it's 2025, and I think you have to adapt to the times. And Mark Murphy did a fantastic job with it. I mean, it's an impressive area, and especially with it being little old Green Bay, Wisconsin. To be able to have all that, I think is the legacy, is the number 1 thing that I will remember Mark Murphy for his time in Green Bay. And then to me, that led into the draft. I'll be honest, when the draft first came to Chicago in 2015, because and really it was all by accident with the draft kind of moving around because it was scheduling conflict in New York for Radio City Hall. So they're like, all right, let's maybe move it somewhere else. And look what happened by a happy accident. It turned into this huge event. Instead of packing people into a hall, they have now made it a worldwide event to where you're getting 6 digits, like we're talking over 500,000 people in a 3-day event to show up. And the fact that it came to Green Bay 10 years after they first started putting it on the road, 2015, the first year in Chicago. And I was at that Chicago one and this BX, the Green Bay one, and to see the difference it's been in the last 10 years was first amazing. But I never would have thought Green Bay would be able to do it. And even this year, I had questions. I had some apprehensions towards it, whether it was going to work or not. They blew it out of the park. And a big credit to that is Mark Murphy for having the vision, but also being kind of never giving up on that goal to bring the draft to Green Bay, because let's be real, Super Bowl's probably never, ever, ever going to come to Green Bay. So what's the next thing? It's the draft. And he got it. And it was awesome. And it was fantastic. And it was a huge win. And if you didn't go there, or you didn't see the setup, I still remember showing up the Wednesday afternoon before and seeing that stage and seeing everything set up. I'm like, wow. Because Lombardi Avenue is so packed on just a normal day, even a non-game day. And to see that thing close down and to see how everything was going, it was just like, I'm still flabbergasted with the whole thing. That's up there. You talk about adding more seats to Lambeau Field in the end zone, right? Was it 7,200 seats, 8,000 more seats? I mean, that's a big project. The updates to Lambeau Field that we don't see, like the player-wise, the parking garage for the players, the indoor downstairs field that they've got that we don't see in the basement, obviously the new locker rooms right now, those type of things that us fans don't see. Those are differences. And then you look at personnel decisions from his tenure. I mean, 2008. So really quick, 2007. I was would have been 2008, but I was at the NFC Championship game with Packers and Giants, that freezing cold one. And I remember walking into the atrium because there was a line to get in. Everybody was just freezing. They wanted to get in as soon as possible, so lines were forming. And I remember getting into a just shoulder-packed atrium and ended up like, because somebody was weaving through traffic and ran into him, like physically, like bumped into him, ran into him. It was Mark Murphy. And, kind of on the job, but wasn't officially the guy yet. And then so after that game, January, he's the guy. He's the new guy in charge. And what's his first order of business? The whole Favre thing. The summer of Favre. That's like his first major thing that he has to go through as the leader of the franchise, is to navigate the whole Favre drama. Does that, and then years later, kind of the same thing with Rodgers. Not as dramatic as the Favre thing was. Not as dramatic, but kind of was, maybe having some flashbacks to the summer of 08. Throwing a championship in 2010, 2011 as well. I mean, you look at the resume and you look at the highlights that Mark Murphy has amassed during his time as the leader for the Packers. I would agree with one of the comments that I do think he tends to get some flack from fans. But you lay it all out and you put it down on paper and you look it down in front of you and you look at the different things, positive things that have happened during his tenure. To me, those far, 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 far outweigh maybe any type of negative stuff or poor stuff out there. And think about this. You want to talk about stability? Stability within a franchise? So he started in 08. He's ending in 2025. How many coaches and general managers did the guy hire? One. One apiece. One apiece. Goody and LaFleur. Stability. How many times, how many teams, how many organizations? Now you could say we could, well, they should have moved on from McCarthy earlier and such and whatever. But how many franchises just recycle every couple years? And by that, I mean, that hire didn't work. Got to reset with a new general manager and a head coach after a couple of years. That didn't work again. Got to reset again. I mean, I would love to compare from 08 to 2025 and see the amount of coaching changes and general manager changes from every other franchise during that time period compared to Green Bay. It's kind of like, I got to imagine it's very similar to the Packers starting quarterbacks compared to like the Bears starting quarterbacks. It's completely one-sided. But the stability of the franchise, and you hear a lot of times too about people, bosses or whatever, saying, I just want to leave, this in a better place than maybe when I got it. And that's not to say Bob Harlan was awful. No, Bob Harlan to me still doesn't get enough credit for the job that he did for Green Bay. But Mark Murphy, he had big shoes to fill with replacing Bob Harlan, but boy, he set the bar high for Ed Policy. Now, Mark Murphy took it and ran with it. He did a fantastic job. And over the years, Green Bay, I think you have to realize that the franchise and the fan base has been incredibly lucky to have a couple of leaders like Bob Harlan and Mark Murphy leading that franchise. Look at the world of sports. Yes, we don't have an owner. These are the closest people we have to an owner. And look at the world of sports with all these different ownership groups and some of the drama that is surrounding some of these ownership groups. We never had to deal with that during these two. We never have to deal with the drama of Jerry Jones or Haslam with Cleveland or some of these other ridiculous stuff that's going on out there. We didn't have to with these two. Didn't have to. And sure, there was probably some decisions that you didn't like or you didn't disagree with. That's going to happen. But when you look at it from a bigger picture, we Packers fans incredibly lucky to have back-to-back amazing leaders leading the franchise. And I just hope Ed Policy comes in and continues kind of that tradition of what Harlan started, and then to Mark Murphy. I'm Ed Policy. I'm high on him. I think he's got such a unique background. Knowing his dad ran, the 49ers in the early 90s. He's got that experience. He has been with the Packers organization for how many years? When they hired Mark Murphy, he was essentially the second choice. John Jones was going to be the guy. He was the right-hand man of Bob Harlan. Then a few days before he was set to take over, there was some stuff coming out saying, health issues and job performance and that. So they kind of reopened it. And Mark Murphy came over from Northwestern. There was probably some like, okay, how much is going to change? Kind of bringing an outsider in and that. Ed Policy's been with the franchise for double-digit years. He's familiar with it. But he's got that unique background with his dad being with the 49ers. He has been an NFL football person worked with what was the AFL Canada football or something like that. And he just has such a unique background that and he was a big part. If Mark Murphy, we're giving a ton of credit for Titletown, but it was Ed Policy that had a just as big of a hand in developing Titletown as well. He was kind of one of the lead charges of the Titletown. So I'm bullish on the Ed Policy. I'm excited to see what he's going to do to kind of take that torch and to lead this franchise for the next 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it may be. We went from Bob Harlan, who I think should be talked about more as a Hall of Famer, to Mark Murphy, who did a fantastic job. I'm excited to see now what's next in terms of big plans, in terms of the vision for this franchise in the next few years. But I just hope, to go back to Mark Murphy, I hope, maybe it's not today, maybe it's not this year, maybe it's going to be a few years from now or whatever. I just hope Packers fans can kind of sit back and look back and be like, yeah, Mark Murphy was pretty darn good. He was pretty darn solid, and we were pretty darn fortunate to have him as a leader of this franchise. Yeah, he had goofy pictures of going sliding down the hill at Arians Hill at Titletown District. Yeah, he in the last couple of years probably was a little bit more open with some comments and such than he needed to be. But from running an organization and running a franchise, I think he was pretty darn good at it and been pretty darn lucky. So thank you to President Mark Murphy. All right, we got to take a quick break. We'll be back with more coming up after these quick words. Get on the bus with us to Brewers versus Giants coming up on August 24th. Just head to wiscotrips.com, wiscotrips.com to reserve your seat on the bus. That includes your game ticket, round trip motor coach transportation, and a tailgate party from Premier Catering. And this is also the Euchre celebration game. So you know it's going to be a packed house. You know it's going to be a loud, awesome environment over there to honor Bob Euchre. And, well, it's a National League game against two teams fighting for a playoff spot. Willie Adames with the Giants coming back to Milwaukee, too. So, lots of storylines for this game, and you want to make sure you are in attendance for that. So, again, head to wiscotrips.com and make sure you click on the Eau Claire icon to reserve your seat on the bus for August 24th. That's a Sunday, by the way, Sunday day game. So, don't have to, if you work during the week and such, don't have to take day off or something like that. If you do work on the weekend, then yeah, you'll probably have to take the day off and such. So, a few more comments as we've been talking a little bit about Mark Murphy and such. We've got on YouTube. I parked in at Kmart many times for Packer games. Great bathrooms. Wrestling talk. He's now one of my favorite wrestlers. Talking about the Hulk, but he's on the Rushmore hands down. We aren't talking about wrestling today without his accomplishments. So, yeah. Again, if you are a wrestling fan, you were. Again, I'm not going to pretend like I'm a diehard and I know a ton about it because I don't. I mean, I know some from when I was a kid, early 90s and such, and Hogan was my guy as a kid. Had the what is it? What are they called? The wrestling buddies? Like they were the stuffed wrestling figures, kind of what couple feet tall and such. I had the Hogan, obviously the Nintendo game with Hogan on the cover and that, but Ultimate Warrior, HBK, Macho Man, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, remember playing the arcade games and that, but I wasn't a diehard or anything like that. So that's why I'm genuinely curious for you, the listeners out there um, who are wrestling fans. Is he on the Mount Rushmore? Is he the GOAT? Your picks, let me know. Text me 715-830-1912. Normally we would have Brandon on Fridays, and this would be a good topic for him, but he was on yesterday because he is heading to the Brewers game today. So, but I did text Brandon and Justice to ask their thoughts because they might go to wrestling peeps. And Brandon said, didn't become a fan until late 97, so I missed the Hogan at his peak. Even his NWO run was running out of steam around that time. But I'd say he's arguably the most important wrestler in the history of business when you factor in the money he drew and the WWF's boom in the 80s. And the rise of wrestling came with him as its central star. Justice said, I would say that he was definitely the biggest wrestling star of my lifetime and have so many memories of him growing up being larger than life. His behind-the-scenes life complicated his legacy. No doubt he was one of the biggest stars transcended into the mainstream. So, also, we've been asking Mark Murphy, legacy, Packers president, final day today. Going to be officially handing over the reins to Ed Policy at the shareholders meeting today. What will you remember the most by Mark Murphy? And let me throw this out there too, Packers fans, for those of you listening. Do you think he kind of gets too much flack? I know a couple of you mentioned that already, but do you think he gets too much grief than what he deserves or what she should be getting? I think he does. But what about you? Let me know. All right. So, some updates from yesterday at practice, day 2 of practice, day 3 of practice coming at you later on this morning. But day 2 of training camp yesterday. And again, I don't want to overreact to, day 2 of a training camp practice, especially no pads and all that sort of stuff. But kind of some things that jumped out, I guess. Again, just I'm trying to not overreact and trying to like manufacture stuff that really wasn't there. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to do that. I don't want to get into deep dives of practice and such and that. But Nate Hobbs he got to talk a little bit with the media, the new corner for the Packers. He was asked about his first impressions playing on this Packers defense. He said, quote, "I'm running around with a pack of dogs. We're running to the ball. We're trying to get the ball out." When he was asked about, apparently they got Super Bowl plaques hanging outside the Packers' new look locker room. He was asked about this from Ryan Wood, and this was a question by Rob Domofsky. Nate Hobbs said, "They need to take them down, or they need to take them 30s and 40s down. No, I'm just playing." When he was told by Ryan Wood that definitely would not go over well around here, he said, I'm playing, Packer Nation, I'm playing. I feel like, though, it's been too long, 2010, and a big old gap. Know what I'm saying? That's not good enough. It's not the standard. It's not the Green Bay standard. So he's right. I think he's right. That's not the standard. But it sounds like yesterday the defense was flying around. And after the end of these practices, coaches determined, what side of the ball kind of won the day. Day one, it was offense because the defense had to do push-ups. But yesterday it was the offense that had to do push-ups. And apparently that defense was just kind of on another level yesterday. And it seems like they were flying around and such. But I guess, one other thing, too, that kind of popped up. Travis Glover, offensive lineman, was taking some reps at left guard on the starting offensive line. Aaron Banks, the free agent signee, is more than he's going to be the starter. But it kind of maybe raised a little bit of the eyebrows from some of the media members, writers in attendance and such, that Travis Glover was getting some reps with the ones. Could just be work. Again, I don't want to overreact from day 2 of a training camp practice and try to read too much into it. But within these first few days, I always look at who gets 1 reps, who gets 2 reps, because those are the early indications of what the coaching staff kind of views as the depth chart. These are the biggest things I take away, is what do the coaches think? How are the coaches thinking that this depth chart looks like? Sometimes there's some surprises, sometimes not really. But I think it is an advantage for those guys who maybe are viewed upon a little bit higher on the depth chart. They have a chance to kind of solidify their spot and to run away with it. Some are kind of instantly maybe put in a little bit of a hole, and they got to climb out of that thing and try to scrap and claw out of their way. It's not to say they can't. They can't make an impression and rise up in terms of more opportunities and more reps with the 1s or 2s. But that's why this first couple weeks, that's the main thing I look at, is who's getting the reps early. Who do they view as, a 1 or a 2? So, again, day 3 coming at you, and then I think after day 3, we're going to start to see some pads put on these players and such. So, Mark Murphy deserves accolades he gets, but what is never talked about is the strong Packer board of directors who are behind the scenes, but are part of all those business decisions. The board is a who's who of Wisconsin business executives. Yeah, there's also been some stories too about the board that I've heard that sometimes they try to meddle too much into football decisions, and that really kind of spiked up in the last couple of years over there, which I don't know. I don't know if I'm in the minority and the majority over here, but I don't necessarily want the board to be involved in football decisions. Stay on the business side of it all. And what I mean by football decisions, I mean personnel and rosters and all that sort of stuff. That was kind of a rumor the last couple of years that there was a few members of there trying to be a little bit more involved in that, and I don't want to see that happen. I don't want it to go back to there's that good story about Lombardi when he first got there in Green Bay, and he was watching practice, just kind of overseeing practice, and somebody, I don't know if it was Olenichek, the president at that time, or somebody else, but he was handed a list of demands from the board, like what he should be doing and such, and he crumpled it up and threw it away and said, this is my team and I'm going to coach my damn team. And that's what it should be. Let the football people do the football things. That's what they're hired for. Let the football people do the football things. So I don't want it to get to that. Not saying it's going to, not saying it has been, but there were those rumors the last few years that maybe there were some trying to meddle into it a little bit too much, and I hope it doesn't ever get to that point again. So. All right, coming up next hour, we'll do a little inside the training room. We'll catch up with our doc, Dr. Austin Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. After that, we'll switch over to a little baseball talk. The Brewers back in action this afternoon, taking on the Marlins. Send me your picks. Who do you think is going to win the home run derby, the alumni home run derby? All right, send your picks on over. Hit me up with a text, 715-830-1912 on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line. We'll hit that up. Also, we'll talk a little AJM Automotive, Pump the Brakes, Full Throttle. We'll hit that up. So, if you have any suggestions, since I'm riding solo, you can send those puppies on over for our Pump the Brakes, Full Throttle. We'll hit that up probably in the 8:00 hour. So if you got any good ones, send those on over, and we'll hit those up. Yeah, probably a little over an hour from now. But keep sending your thoughts on Mark Murphy's tenure. You can send those on over if you'd like, 715-830-1912. Also, if you want to talk a little wrestling with the Hulkster passing away, is he on your Mount Rushmore? Is he the GOATs? Again, I don't know a lot about it, but I know a lot of our listeners are fans of it, so I'm genuinely curious to see where everybody's at on that. So if you want to make your opinions heard, please send them on over. All right, so we'll get to those coming up here throughout the morning as well. So, and then maybe we'll get back to a little bit more green and gold chat. I know Steve said he's on his way on the road right now to Green Bay for the shareholders meeting, and a couple of you have texted in saying too that you have you're on the road to Milwaukee as well. So, all right, shot clock's gonna cut me off here in a minute. So again, we'll kick it off with a little inside the training room with Dr. Crow. So we'll do that. We will talk a little bit about Justin Fields' injury and such, and more. So we got that, and then we'll get into Brewers chat. Brewers. Again, I haven't seen anybody really talking about trap series, trap game against the Marlins. I don't know if anybody's thought about that. Just considering how well they've been playing, and then you got the Cubs coming to town after that. Does anybody have that feeling? I guess I don't have that feeling, but maybe somebody else does out there. I don't know, but we'll see. We'll see. But I don't have that feeling that it's trap. I hope it's not. Freddie Peralta getting the start today for the Brew Crew, looking for his 13th win to improve to 13-4. All right. 1 in, 2 more to go. Take a quick break, got some news updates, and we'll be back after these quick words.
this fall. The 1923 Classic uniforms feature the helmets hand-painted to look like leather, navy blue jerseys with dark gold numbers, tan pants, and navy socks. And the team says the uniforms are inspired by what they wore in 1923. And you can bet Casper's going to have a closet full because he's the fashionista. He's also kind of the Prince of Darkness, but so is this guy. If you hop the pond, you might be going to Ozzy Airport soon.
A petition on change.org has more than 2,500 signatures to rename Birmingham International Airport after the Prince of Darkness. The petition was started by Dan Hudson, an admitted metalhead who co-hosts a podcast called A Gay and a Non-Gay. There's no word yet from officials if renaming Birmingham International Airport after Ozzy is being considered. I'm Mark Nephew.
You know, Casper was asking for somebody to throw a flag. Said I was getting too mean lately. We took it to the stripes, but
There's no word yet from officials.
for Sports Talk 105.1, I'm Morgan McCarthy.
You want to allow some extra time for the commute this morning, and also be sure to have those headlights on as we are tracking areas of fog, some of which has become locally dense in spots. Once that fog lifts, we are looking at mostly to partly sunny skies for the end of the week. Our high temperature in the mid 80s. Tonight, variable clouds will cool down to around 66. Over the weekend, plenty of sunshine, temperatures warming through the 80s, around 90 Sunday. On 13 First Alert, meteorologist Derek Dahlman.
Service Master of Chippewa Valley is your local expert when it comes to fire and water damage, carpet and air duct cleaning, mold remediation, and trauma. They're when you need them 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Trust comes in the yellow truck. Learn more at ServiceMasterChippewaValley.com. The Mine Safety and Health Administration reminds you that mining accidents and injuries are preventable. Staying alert and focused can keep you safe. Take time, save lives. Visit MSHA.gov.
Ladies and gentlemen, sports aficionados and armchair quarterbacks, welcome to the Dan Kasper Show, where sports passion meets expert analysis. Dan's encyclopedic knowledge and infectious passion for all things sports is both impressive and sad.
I have many leather-bound books.
So get ready to laugh, cheer, and maybe even facepalm a few times.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
It's the Dan Kasper Show.
Here we go, second hour kicking off on this Friday morning. We'll get back to a little more football talk. Send us your Mount Rushmore if you are a wrestling fan. Send me your Mount Rushmores over there. We got a couple more to get to here. We'll do a little AJM Automotive Pump the Brakes Full Throttle coming up in about an hour from now. So if you have any good questions with that one, throw that to my texting line too. We'll get to some Brewers talk. Brewers afternoon game, 3:10 taking on the Marlins. You can listen to that on the radio dials, 105.1 FM, 790 AM. And then send me your predictions, your picks for the Alumni Home Run Derby. That'll be after the game. We kick off this hour, though, catching up with our doc, Mr. Austin Crow.
Paging Dr. Crow. Breaking down the latest in sports injuries. It's time for Inside the Training Room with Dr. Crow. On the Dan Kasper Show.
He is Dr. Austin Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, joining us this morning. Good morning, Doc. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Beautiful day out there.
It is, man. It is. Hey, we've got training camp starting up for all the teams out there. And I guess if you're a Jets fan, you were probably holding your breath quite a bit yesterday when social media was just on fire about Justin Fields getting, as they said, carted off with a lower leg injury. So everybody's thinking the worst at that point. But apparently it's a dislocated toe. Avoided serious injury, they said, and such. Timeline, it doesn't seem to be out there and such. I don't know if it's the big toe or if it's a little toe. I don't know if they released that or such. But, I mean, something like that with a dislocated toe and he plays quarterback and he's a mobile quarterback, Austin. What's kind of a typical timeline for that? Or does it vary depending on which toe it is?
Yeah, it does make a big difference at the big toe or one of the smaller toes. But truthfully, either way, he's going to bounce back real quickly. They'll probably get him like a carbon fiber insert for his cleat to help offload the toe a little bit, but I'm guessing he'll be back pretty quickly. Now, of course, the balancing act is like, is this training camp super, super important? I mean, I think in the case where you have, a younger guy who's still trying to learn the ropes, I think it's probably more important. So I think a veteran guy would probably get a little more rest. So they'll probably want him to do more mental reps and get him back out there sooner rather than later. But this is not an injury that's going to keep him out for any length of time. The initial tweet, I think Adam Schefter tweeted he thought it was an Achilles, which of course then everyone's like, great, there we go again. I don't know if it's just because it's a curse of the Jets now or what, but luckily it was not, and it was a toe. So this is going to be something he should bounce back. And again, long term, I don't expect to be any issues. He should bounce back fully.
And then yesterday afternoon, the Raiders had released one of their high-priced free agents from just a year ago, Christian Wilkins, and it sounds like he's been recovering from a Jones fracture, speaking of foot injuries, last October. And I was reading a little bit from ESPN, because of how Wilkins has treated the rehab from his injury, this is why the Raiders are kind of moving on and voided his guaranteed money left on his contract. So I got to imagine lawyers will be involved with that situation. But how difficult is it to come back from a Jones fracture in your foot?
Well, it depends on how it heals. I mean, that's the bottom line. So the Jones fracture is the fifth metatarsal. So basically your pinky toes, you fall up to the middle part of your foot. It's that long bone in the midfoot. And so it's a break that's at kind of the proximal or near end. And the reason it's kind of quote unquote famous is that it is a troublemaker. So the blood supply comes from either a vessel in the middle part or the tendon insertions on that tip. So it leaves this, we call a watershed area, where it doesn't get great blood supply from either side. So when you break in that area, they are notorious for not healing correctly. So once they heal correctly, most people do quite well. Some people get irritation from the screw and have that taken out later. But with a Jones fracture, if you can get it to heal, shouldn't be any long-term issue. But therein lies the rub. So they're just notorious for not healing correctly. So my assumption is, and I was actually just reading on this last night, my assumption is it's either not healing correctly or there's some issue going on with the healing where he's going to have, they think he's going to have like an irritation, or maybe the bone's not healing correctly, like what's called the malunion. There's something going on, because really, in reality, I mean, if it heals, he should be back to what he was, which is, of course, an elite player. And he had a pretty big guaranteed contract too. So it's not like they're just cutting him and saving a bunch of money. I mean, they're still shelling out. So there's got to be something to this backdrop. And my assumption is that it's not healing quickly, but that is absolutely an assumption.
Interesting. Yeah. So staying with football and going to the Packers side, because I know Packers fans are probably, all excited. Christian Watson, who's coming back from an ACL injury, he's riding the bike, he's doing speed tests, according to the general manager. So, you got people saying, oh, I wonder if he's going to come back a lot sooner and such. I mean, is this, though, a typical timeline to be doing speed tests? And is it really that big of a deal that he's riding a bike and going to watch practice in July when he suffered that injury? What was it? I think November, December of last year.
Yeah, it was late. I mean, there's layers to this. An ACL rehab is a highly debated topic. I think if you look at, there's a couple different factors. I mean, one is just overall condition of the leg. And so, I mean, you have to have the athlete has to have good range of motion. They have to have good strength. The graft has to feel good. You don't want swelling on the knee. If all those things are in place, then you look at the timeline. And I mean, most people agree anything short of 6 months is just, at this point, not a good idea. The re-tear rates are markedly higher. But there are studies, and it depends on which study you look at, that show even up to 9-12 months, there's some higher re-tear rates as well. So it's a case-by-case basis. But to your question, is it reasonable for him to be doing those things right now? I mean, totally. That would be a standard recovery process. So it's not like, wow, he's way light years ahead. I mean, this is what athletes are doing at this time point. They're trying to get the leg moving. They're not doing a lot of lateral explosive twisting, spinning, loading in that regard, because that's where you really start testing the ACL, and they'll often wait a little bit longer. But even that, you'll sometimes start guys in, doing some leg work and lump jumping, landing exercises, things like that. So, I mean, my guess is that they're going to, especially in the setting of, what his knee's been through, I don't think that they're going to want to push the envelope and try to rush him back. Instead, I think they're going to take it nice and slow and make sure that the knee's recovered. And but the athletes are chomping at the bit, right? I mean, they'll come be like, I'm ready to go, but we know that that even sometimes the leg really truly feels ready, but the graft itself isn't. And you don't have a nerve fiber in the graft to tell the athlete like, oh, it's giving you feedback that's not right. Like, like a sprained ankle or hammy, you run on it and you're like, that just doesn't feel quite right yet. I mean, the leg can be recovered around the ACL, but if the graft isn't strong yet, it just unfortunately puts him at high risk for that, pop second injury or third injury in his case, which you of course don't want.
Yeah, and is it kind of when you get to that point with an ACL, is it almost like what's the process to approve a player, like for you, whether it's a high school or college or pro athlete? Like, at what point do you like, okay, you're approved and ready to go, or is it kind of just like you just look at all the tests, you look at scans, or that, like, what's that process like?
Yeah, I mean, it's individualized for sure, but for the most part, I mean, the first one is timeline. So I just never clear an athlete before 6 months. It just is a bad idea. I mean, again, we've had study after study show the retear rate's dramatically higher. And the reason for that is the graft that we put in, no matter what graft we put in, we're trying to make a new ACL, which is a ligament. We always put in tendons. So whether it's a hamstring tendon, whether it's a quad tendon, whether it's a patellar tendon, there are always tendons that we put in place. So the body actually changes that tendon into a ligament. It's called ligamentization. And so that, like, revascularization and the changing of the collagen fibers, it actually weakens the graft. And so that weakness occurs really through months like 3, 4, 5, and starts to swing back up around month 6. Again, depending what study you look at, that can really extend beyond in the 9 to 12 months. So what that does, that sets up a window where the athlete, again, everything around the leg feels great. You're like, oh, look, I feel good. Like, look at my strength, look at my motion. But the graft is still weak. And if they load it, your ACL has to accept load. If it's weak, pop, there it goes. So that was a long-winded thing. So 6 months is the bare minimum. Often I look towards getting closer to that 9 if it is possible, depending on in-season timelines. But then you also look at strength. So there have been studies that look at basically side-to-side strength. At minimum, you want to be 80% of the other side, ideally closer. But that's somewhat of an arbitrary number that really hasn't been supported a ton, but that's what some studies have shown. You want to have full range of motion. The graft itself has to feel good. That's a ligament where I can grab the leg and pull on the ACL and see how it feels, and it has to feel good. And then lastly, in some regards, maybe most importantly, is like the athlete has to feel ready. There's a psychological recovery process to this. So people who've been through this can certainly attest. I mean, you're gun shy. I mean, it's that and fear is not the right word, but they're just like, they've been through a lot. It's really a lot mentally and physically to go through a recovery process like this. So they have to trust that leg. And I think there's an interesting statistic that people don't always realize. If you tear your ACL, you're actually 2 times more likely to tear the other knee ACL than you are the one that you tore. So if you standard ACL is about a 6 to 7% retear rate, the opposite knee is like 12 or 13%. So we think that's because of that exact thing. People are compensating. They don't trust their leg. So say you tear your right one, you're now favoring it, and all of a sudden you tear your left knee, and unfortunately we do see that. And so it has to have that mental element. So it's an individualized process, but it's one that we have to kind of check all those boxes. And for a lot of young athletes, it involves us being like, whoa, like, we're just not quite there yet, right? I mean, they're eager to get back out there. They put in a ton of work, but you just have to be smart about it. So it's a tough process for sure.
Yeah. Staying with the Packers really quick, Quay Walker, General Manager Goody, said that he had an off-season procedure to clean up his ankle. And I know we've kind of talked about cleanup procedures before, but maybe a good refresher, since I'm sure we're probably going to hear this a little bit more. But when we hear the term a cleanup procedure in the knee or the ankle, what exactly are they kind of cleaning up?
Generally speaking, be either like loose debris, so like floating pieces, or whether it's cartilage or small bone fragments. Sometimes they'll be actually cleaning or smoothing out the joint surfaces. So there's mild wear, maybe a cartilage flap. In the knee, sometimes people will actually even refer to cleanup with a meniscus procedure. So not a repair, because that's a long recovery, but a cleanup would be just removing small tears in the menisci. So generally, you're just kind of going in there, and as the name implies, cleaning things up. So irregular surfaces, floating pieces, debris, you're just trying to get the joint in better condition. But often those are a surgery you walk away, and you know that you're leaving some level of damage that's still there. but you're just going to kind of optimize what's going on. So certainly they can be very helpful for some patients. They're ones that it's like, all right, this may be the beginning of a bigger problem down the road. But you have to understand that context of why you're doing it. But yeah, you do see a whole heck of a lot of those in the pro athletes, just because the wear and tear they put in their bodies. And sometimes they just need to get things, debrided and cleaned up in there, and that's what you do.
I want a couple more here. So Will Levis, who, probably was going to be the backup quarterback for Tennessee after drafting Cam Ward #1, but his season's already done because he's having shoulder surgery on his throwing shoulder. And, it's just the timing of having that surgery is kind of almost like Derek Carr. It felt like a little bit with the injury. So is it kind of weird to have the surgery at this point? Do you think it's something that just maybe popped up, or was it maybe something that, because he had shoulder injuries last year he was dealing with, is it maybe something that just didn't heal correctly and it was probably about time to maybe actually have that surgical procedure to fix it?
Yeah, it is a bit of a head scratcher because this injury did occur last season, right? So it occurred, it was an AC injury, so that's the acromioclavicular joint. Now, those are injuries that we often will treat conservatively, even higher grade ones where you get significant displacement of the clavicle. So my assumption is they said, look, a lot of these do okay. Let's try rehab it and see where it goes. But the thing is, you'd think at some point earlier in the summer, it would have kind of come to their attention. Either way, though, if they had it midsummer, early summer even, he still would be out the whole season. So I guess it doesn't matter quite much. So this would be a season-ending injury. Frankly, even if he had it at the end of last season, like right away, it would probably impair his ability to get back right away, because I believe it's on his throwing shoulder. And so so AC reconstructions, those are not the world's most predictable recovery process. So, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the ligaments now, even though it's the AC joint, we're trying to actually get the ligaments between the clavicle and what's called the coracoid process to heal, what's called the CC ligaments. So there's about 1 million different ways that we do that. So you can weave a graft around it. You can drill tunnels and weave a graft. You can actually do what's called a dog bone. So it's these two little metal buttons that look like dog bone, hence the name, with a suture. You can do a plate. You can do a screw. And whenever I always kind of tell patients, whenever there's 10 ways to do it, it means because there's not one really good way. Because if there's one really good way, we'd all do it that way.
Yeah.
So when it's a surgery that has all those options, it just, they can work well, and I do these surgeries on patients, and they have good outcomes. But when you're trying to get a guy back to throwing at the NFL level, it just, Anthony Richardson, had the same issue, right? He had his shoulder done, and he's, I think, still dealing with some issues on that as well. And that's not shocking, to be honest with you. So not an ideal injury to have, but it is. To kind of to the point of your question, is like the timeline for the surgery. It's, you kind of would expect it earlier when I'm sure he's been throwing and figuring out whether it's a go or not, but clearly there was something that triggered it, and maybe he was doing well and he just kind of re-aggravated, and it's like, look, this is just, it got flared up for the third time. That's one too many. I'm done. It's obviously hard to say for sure.
Hey, last one here for you. This one is kind of a little bit of an unknown, but it was on Wednesday. Dolphins offensive lineman Bayron Matos, he was taken to a hospital via helicopter at training camp. Now, the Dolphins haven't really said exactly what's going on, but they said he has movements in all extremities and is in stable condition. So I don't really want to, kind of like try to maybe guess what it is, but I guess it almost maybe seems like a neck injury when I hear like movement in all extremities. Is that maybe possibly what they're concerned about?
Yeah, that's certainly one of the first things you think about, right? And whenever they say that, it's a guy who's down in the field, and people are like, did he have a spinal cord injury? Certainly that's going to be one of them. The other would be like a cardiac event where they go down and whether it's an arrhythmia or a heart condition that causes syncope or loss of consciousness. But certainly neck injury is probably the one that gets most people freaked out. That's one that we don't play games with. So I've seen that a couple times covering games where you have neck injuries, and it is like, as soon as that is a possibility, it's like you just stop, support the neck, get him on an ambulance, or in this case a helicopter, and get him assessed right away, just because the potential complications are catastrophic to say the least, right? Unfortunately, we occasionally see athletes that are paralyzed either from the waist down or neck down, and that's just obviously a terrible situation. So we can try and mitigate that by supporting the neck or back as soon as possible. And so that's one of those injuries where it's like you just don't take any chances. And so, luckily, often it's going to be something that's transient, but occasionally you do see those injuries. And again, fortunately, they're rare though.
Mm-hmm. He's Dr. Austin Crow. So I know you were a wrestler back in your day, and I know it's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
Hulkster, Mount Rushmore of wrestlers.
Oh, I mean, is that even a debate? Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, he was the icon of my childhood. I mean, him, probably Andre the Giant. I mean, their matchups were legendary.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't follow it beyond that when I was a kid, but I mean, when I was a kid, it'd probably be him, Ultimate Warrior.
Yep.
He was one of my favorites as a kid.
Macho Man's
who
out
else?
there.
Oh yeah, I got to go Macho Man. I'd say that he'd be probably those four. And I realize that's old school, right? I'm one of the old school guys, I guess, probably. But to me, those are the four OGs that, you know, as a kid watching it and wrestling around with my buddies. That's
Oh yeah.
we definitely. But I mean, Hulkster's got to be. I mean, he's got to be number one or close to it. I mean,
got to do the Ric Flair strut sometimes too. So, you know, throw that in
well,
there.
I mean, the woo,
Yeah.
There's a lot of good. I mean, man, those were the heydays, right?
I'm the same era as you. Yep.
Yeah.
But
that's great stuff.
Yeah, it was. Hey, we appreciate the time as always, buddy. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll catch up with you again soon. Okay, sir?
Absolutely. Take care.
You got it. There you go. Dr. Austin Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, joining us this morning. We'll take a quick break, and we'll switch gears and talk a little baseball. Brewers back in action tonight, or this afternoon, excuse me, taking on the Marlins. Freddie Peralta on the mound. We'll preview that coming up after these quick words. At AJM Automotive in Eau Claire, they're not just about getting the job done, they're about doing it right. Whether it's vehicle repairs, small engine work, or towing services, their team is there to provide top-notch customer service every single time. With years of experience and a commitment to keeping you on the road, AJM Automotive is your go-to for reliable service when you need it most. No job too big, too small. Visit AJM Automotive in Eau Claire today. Shout out to AJM Automotive too, because they're working on the lawnmower, so hopefully makes the wife happy there and getting back to cutting the grass. So big thanks to AJM Automotive for helping us out over there. We'll get back to some more green and gold chats, but if you're just joining in, first hour we took a look at some of your comments. How will you remember the legacy of one Mark Murphy? How will you remember his, like, if you had to pick one thing, what's that one thing? There's a lot of good things. There's a lot of things that we could be highlighting in Mark Murphy's tenure as it wraps up today at the shareholders meeting. But what's the one thing that maybe stands out to you the most? Also, with the Hulkster passing away at the age of 71, I'm not the biggest wrestling fan out there, was as a kid, but for those who maybe still follow it or know more about it, give me your Mount Rushmores. All right. Is he on your Mount Rushmore? It seems like a lot of you right now saying yes. GOAT. Anybody? It seems like, I will say the majority have him as on the Mount Rushmore, but majority not the GOAT. So give me your Mount Rushmores. And yay or nay, is he the GOAT? All right. I'm going to the experts out there. Y'all listening right now that follow it. You're more of an expert than me at that. So I need your input and your insight on that. So hit me up with a text on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line, 715-830-1912. Bottom of the hour here, just past it. Brewers back in action this afternoon. 3:10 game. Reminder, it's an afternoon game down in Milwaukee as they take on the Marlins. After the game will be the Alumni Home Run Derby. So make your picks. Who do you think wins it? Fielder, Braun, Corey Hartz, Carlos Gomez, Yo-Yo, Giovanni Gallardo, Bill Hall, et cetera, et cetera. Who do you got? Who are you gonna roll with? Let's have a little fun with our picks with that. But the game itself got Freddie Peralta getting the start for the Brewers tonight, looking for his 13th win on the season. Looking at these lineups and these matchups and such, Freddie Peralta, not a ton of experience with this Marlins lineup. We got probably about a couple games worth going up against Freddie Peralta here. On the flip side, you got Cal Quantrill going for the Marlins, and you got a little bit of experience here with the Brewers lineup going up against him. In fact, he pitched back on the 5th when he went 3 2/3 and he gave up 2 earned runs, but did have 6 strikeouts in that game. Cheerio, just game's worth, 667 batting average, 2 for 3. Haas has 16 career at-bats against him, just 188. He's got the most of any Brewers hitter. Vaughn's got 9 career at-bats against him. He's actually hitting 444 with a 944 OPS against him. So, but got Freddie on the mound, and Cal so far this year is 3-8 with a 5.24 ERA. He is coming off of a very good performance, though, against Kansas City back on the 19th. It was a no decision, but he went 6 innings, only gave up 2 hits, and no earned runs, no walks, did strike out 3. So is coming off of a very, very good performance there. So Freddie, meanwhile, we know he's on this winning streak right now for the Crew. Going back all the way to June 13th. He has won every single start since June 13th. Can he continue that streak? He's riding a 7-game winning streak. So far in the month of July, this will be his 5th start in July, 4-0 with a 2.66 ERA. Coming off that game against the Dodgers, 5 innings, 5 hits, 4 earned runs, but did pick up the win. Not the greatest outing for Freddie Peralta, if you remember from that Dodgers game. Brewers jumped out to a lead, but then gave it right back. It was kind of a little bit of a back and forth affair and such. Not the cleanest, not the sharpest outing for Freddie Peralta, but maybe looking for a little bit of a bounce back performance from him today, going up against the Marlins. But like anything with Freddie Peralta, you probably have to prepare for a guy that's going to get you between 5 and 6 innings, and that pitch count's going to be in the 90s up to close to 100, right? I mean, his early outing this year when he went 8 innings against Kansas City in his second start and had 97 pitches, that's incredibly rare coming from Freddie Peralta. So he's consistently going to get you between 5 and 6 and have that pitch count up in the 90s, close to 100. You'd like to, see him extend that a little bit more, lower that pitch count, maybe add another inning or so on there. But, we've seen this enough over the years from Freddie Peralta. This just might be the type of pitcher he is going forward. So hopefully, though, it'd be nice if we can get, at least 6 innings for Freddie Peralta today going up against the Marlins. Maybe save a little bit on that bullpen here, especially with the Cubs coming up here. Don't want to overlook this series against the Marlins. I don't feel like it's a trap series. I haven't really seen anybody talk about that, which on one hand, I'm a little surprised nobody's really talked about it because it seems like it fits that definition of a trap series, coming off of some good games, winning your road trip. You have a big series coming up right after this. It fits a lot of the definitions of a trap series, but I haven't seen anybody really talk about that. I don't know if anybody kind of feels like that. I don't know if anybody kind of feels like it's a trap situation. Like, I always go based off my gut, which doesn't really tell you anything. I don't feel like this is a trap series. Now, I could be completely wrong, and I hope it's not a trap series, but I don't know. Maybe it's just kind of the approach that this team has had during this stretch, because it sure seems like this is a team that just focuses on this one thing at a time, one game at a time, which is the mentality you have to have. It is the exact mentality that you need to have at this point. Focus on you. You control your destiny. You still control your destiny. You're the top dog. You're leading your division right now. You're leading the National League. You are the lead dog that controls the destiny. Take it by a game-by-game approach. And it just feels like the Brewers have been doing an excellent job at that. Then coming up tomorrow, you've got Jose Quintana on the mound for the Crew, going up against Jansen Junk. All right, so Quintana, again, one of those pitchers that this year has just been awesome for the Brewers. But it's a little bit of unfamiliarity between the two, looking at both the lineups. When we look at Jansen, he's coming off of a loss against Kansas City where he went 5 innings and 4 earned runs. But before that, his 2 games before that against Baltimore and Cincinnati, guy was awesome. Back on the 12th, went 7 innings, 5 hits, no earned runs. Back on the 7th against the Reds, 6 innings, 1 hit, no earned runs. So outside that Kansas City one, he's been, those 2 games, he's been pretty darn good. And then looking at the month of July, he's got a 2.25 ERA. One of his losses was the second against Minnesota. He gave up 2 earned runs, got charged with the loss. But he's been pretty darn good so far in the month of July. Pretty darn solid. June, he was 2-0 with a 4.84 ERA in 5 games. Just started 2 of those, though. So, and then, of course, as we mentioned a little bit, Jose Quintana, one of those pitchers that has been just pretty darn solid for the Brewers throughout this entire season. Doing exactly what he has done against the Brewers throughout his entire career, but now he's doing it for the Brewers this year. Coming off of a win against the Dodgers, where he went 6 innings, 4 hits, 4 earned runs in that series. And really, you want to talk about a model of consistency so far for Jose Quintana? That's kind of been him. So far in the month of July, in 3 games, he's got a 4.15 ERA. What did he do in June? 4.15 ERA. He's not going to be a guy that's going to overpower you, going to give you a lot of ground ball opportunities and such. But he's a solid pitcher. He's a steady pitcher. And so far this year, 7-3 with that 3.49 ERA. If you're a Brewers fan, you got to be happy with what you're seeing from Jose Quintana so far this season. And then On Sunday, it's Brandon Woodruff. So what does that mean? To look a little ahead, no Woody against the Cubs. No Quintana in that. So that's a little bit of a downer, but it's probably going to be against the Cubs. It's lining up to be Mizorowski, Priester, and Peralta against the Cubs. But Brandon Woodruff making his second start against the Marlins so far this season. And I mean, what else can we say about Brandon Woodruff that we haven't already said about Brandon Woodruff? Coming off that game against Seattle, 6 innings, 2 hits, no walks, 5 strikeouts, 62 pitches. You want to talk about blowing the doors off expectations this year? Brandon Woodruff is blowing the doors off our expectations. Whether it's the efficiency he's been pitching with the accuracy, the guy has not issued a single walk yet in his 3 starts. 8, 10, 5 strikeouts, 2 hits, 5 hits, 2 hits, 3 total earned runs in his 3 combined outings. The guy has been awesome. It'll be interesting to see if they still kind of have maybe a pitch count on him going forward. Does that pitch count go up after every start? Does it kind of move up a little bit where they can continue to extend him and such? That's going to be something to watch with Woodruff going forward. Do they still max it out at a pitch count, or do they try to maybe just give him a little bit more each time if he's pitching well? But I think every time Brandon Woodruff now makes a start for the Brewers, there's always we're just kind of looking for more steps. Okay, another example of dude's looking good. All right, maybe just extend it a little bit more. Because I'll be honest, I'm still kind of holding my breath every time Woodruff goes out there. Just get through it good. Get through it good. Yes, he's gone through 3 games already, but it's probably going to take me a few more games to kind of get over the thought of all right, let's just get through it unscathed. Let's have a good outing, but no injuries, nothing flaring up or anything like that. But so far, so good with Woody. Fantastic comeback so far for him. Fantastic. And that has made a huge difference in that clubhouse with him just being back on the mound. Yes, he was with the team throughout his whole rehab process and recovery and that. But being on the mound and pitching as well as he's been pitching, that has been one of the I would say one of the things that has gotten this team going and just humming lately is seeing Brandon Woodruff back on that mound. That had to provide some motivation for this ball club. And I know we all want to focus on this Cubs series that's coming up starting on Monday. We're fans. We can kind of look at that and get excited about that. But for the Brewers, you have to take it one game at a time. You cannot, especially with Freddie and Quintana and Woodruff on the mound for this 3-game series, you cannot overlook the Marlins. You can't take it for granted. You can't have your eye on in the Cubs series starting on Monday in that division race between them. You want to be able to go into that series still holding your division lead. You want to win this series against the Marlins and still have that advantage. You don't want to enter a Cubs series. And if you're doing a little scoreboard watching, Cubs are playing the White Sox. Okay? I know the White Sox have been scoring some runs, but you would think the Cubs should win that series. You don't want to enter this potential series with the Cubs in a hole or chasing them. You want to enter this series still at the top. Take care of your business. Win this series against the Marlins. Do what you've been doing. Focus this thing on one game at a time. Focus on today. After today, focus on Saturday. One at a time approach throughout the whole rest of the season. Take it by a game approach. I'm looking at the schedule for the Brewers coming up here. And honestly, I think it sets up well for the Brewers to continue to stack up a lot more wins. You got Miami. Definitely going to be a tough series against the Cubs coming up here. Then you go on the road to Washington. Then you're on the road against Atlanta. Atlanta's got playmakers, but we know they're struggling. Then you're at home against the Mets. That should be a good series. Pittsburgh then. Cincinnati. And that Cincinnati series starts that long stretch of games that we were talking about the other day. From August 15th all the way until September 1st, they've got a game. No built-in off days. That's going to be a long stretch. But you look at the opponent, Cincinnati, okay. Yeah, that Cubs series, 5 games in 4 days, is going to be brutal. That Giant series. Then you got the Diamondbacks, who seem like they're starting to sell off after making a trade yesterday. 4 games against the Diamondbacks. Toronto is playing really well. But I think this is a series. This is a next calendar month. Kind of just finish off this month of July and look into August. I think the Brewers have a chance to rack up more wins and hopefully finish this thing strong. But let's still focus on it one day at a time, one game at a time. All right, we got to take a quick break. As I mentioned, one trade's already gone down. What are the latest rumors out there? Is this the weekend that maybe it's after this weekend, we'll start to see more teams potentially starting to sell off some of their players, starting to sell off some of their assets. And will the Brewers be one of those ball clubs? Let's hit that up as we wrap up the second hour coming up after these few words. Next week, the calendar flips to August, and before you know it, we're going to be darn close to hunting season. Well, you better start to get ready. And are you looking for that perfect firearm or maybe some accessories? Tilden Gun is the place to go. Whether you're just starting out or adding to your collection, they offer a wide selection of rifles, shotguns, handguns, and ammunition to fit your needs. What sets Tilden Gun apart is their knowledgeable staff ready to guide you through every single decision, helping you find the right equipment at the right price. They pride themselves on outstanding customer service and treating every person who walks in the door like family. With competitive pricing, you can trust that you're getting great value without compensating on quality. You can visit Tilden Gun today by checking out their website at tildengun.com or stop by their shop, 12427 98th Avenue in Chippewa Falls. So, trade deadline less than a week away now. We saw one trade yesterday, the Diamondbacks shipping Josh Naylor to the Mariners last night. So, probably an indication that, Diamondbacks are looking to probably make some more moves here. Obviously, the big one is Suarez. You got Zach Gallen as well, potentially could be on his way out. But have to imagine that this is probably the first move of many more to kind of come here, and specifically maybe with the Diamondbacks and such. And I was reading too that the Yankees apparently called in on O'Neal Cruz from Pittsburgh. Don't know if that's going to happen or not, but yeah, that was something. Kurt Hogg. So this was actually just a few days ago, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, because there's been this thing about Freddie Peralta, could he be traded and such and that, but Matt Arnold kind of shut the door on that going forward. So this was a few days ago. He said, obviously it's important for us never to close the door, but Freddie means the world to our franchise and all of us. I would expect him to be a big part of this going down the stretch. It's something that we can never exclusively say no on anything, but he just means so much to so many people here. I'm thrilled to have him as part of this team. So I think, that's wanted to throw that out there in case anybody was still thinking that that's a possibility. Can we shut the door on that? I hope we can shut the door on that part, but I'm sure there'll still be others kind of throwing it out there and such. But, I think this weekend for sure, we'll probably possibly see a couple moves this weekend, but I think after this weekend, we're going to start to see that flurry of moves that we're going to see kind of maybe the dam start to break a little bit. You kind of had that chip last night, and I think we're going to see a little bit more. We'll probably get a couple this weekend. I think I'd be a little shocked if we didn't have a couple this weekend, just to kind of, maybe start to open up that dam a little bit more. But I think next week's a deadline, but the beginning of next week is really when we're going to see a lot more of that trade movement. And Brewers wise, I know we kind of threw out, hey, could they actually make a move before that Cubs series? Could they bring in a power bat before that Cubs series? And I guess they still have time. To do that. But I feel like if the Brewers are going to make a move, it's going to come either during that Cubs series or, they have the off day on the 31st, so they could do something by then on the deadline and not really affect anything. But sounds like too, Suarez, who's probably the big fish on the market, that the Mariners are still interested in acquiring for him too. MLB.com's Daniel Kramer reported that Suarez is still a top target for Seattle, even after the Mariners completed the Naylor trade. So we'll see if that kind of transpires. And according to another report from the MLB.com, the D-backs may be in selling mode, but the price for Suarez is, quote, a ton. Mark Feinsad said that Arizona is asking for a ton in return for the slugging third baseman, and as if the price isn't met, the Diamondbacks could end up holding on to him and try to re-sign him this offseason. See, this is the thing that it just kind of bugs me about baseball and teams selling off on the deadline and that. Like this past offseason, they signed Corbin Burnes to a deal. Corbin Burnes gets hurt this year, and obviously it affects the season. And the Diamondbacks on paper heading into this year looked like a pretty solid team, looked like a playoff caliber team. But because of one down year, with some injuries mixed in, now they're like selling off on players. And we see this all the time in Major League Baseball. And that's like the one thing that bugs me. It's like you have a half a down year, and it's like, got to start all over. And it could take a couple of years before even getting back to maybe a playoff status and such. That's the one thing that kind of just bugs me about baseball, is just how quick that some teams are to just like giving up and just kind of restarting the clock right away. Not all the teams. I mean, your bigger market teams aren't that way, but some of these teams are just so darn quick to that. But I looked at some rumors tried to find some rumors for the Brewers, and I'll admit it's pretty quiet right now. Don't know if that's a good thing. Don't know if that's a bad. I would be willing to bet that Matt Arnold is like not just sitting on his hands and not answering phone calls or not returning texts or inquiring, hey, what would this cost? I would imagine he's had preliminary discussions, that he's done some talking, that he's gone out there and said, okay, what's your price tag on this? Doing a little shopping. Kind of like when you start to do the whole car buying process, you kind of look around, be like, okay, what's the deal on that one? What's the best you can do? You try to gather some info before, jumping all in on just the one. I got to imagine him and his staff right now are doing that. And anybody who thinks that they're just kind of sitting on their hands and not doing anything, I disagree with that. I think they're working the phones. But they're not going to overspend. We know that. But they're going to try to find some deals. I feel like the Brewers are going to make a deal. May not be that deal that everybody gets excited about or pumped up about and such. But they're going to do, I think, at least a couple before next week's deadline. All right, shot clock's going to cut me off here in about 15 seconds or such. So we'll kind of recap things at the top of the hour here. Again, if you're just joining us, the lasting legacy of Mark Murphy as his career as Packers president CEO ends today. What's the main thing that stands out to you? The Hulkster. See the goats? Is he on your Mount Rushmore? I need to hear from you, wrestling peeps. All right, this is your time to educate me on this topic. Plus, give me your picks for the Brewers Alumni Home Run Derby, which is this evening. All right, who you got? 2 in, 1 more to go before we're off for the weekend. We'll be back after this quick break. final hour on this Friday morning coming at you right now. If you're already up and at it and rolling here this morning, a big thanks for making us a part of your starts here. Let's catch up on what we've talked about in the first couple of hours or couple hours of the program. Mark Murphy's final day today. What is his lasting legacy for the Packers? What is the main thing that you think about during Murphy's tenure from 2008 to right now? What's the one thing that kind of stands out to you the most? And do you think he kind of gets too much flack at times from the fans? Do you think he gets some unnecessary flack? Yay or nay? Do you agree with that? Hulkster passing away at the age of 71. I've been asking our resident wrestling fans, because I know we have a lot of you. I want to know, is Hulk on the Mount Rushmore? I will admit, this is not my strong suit. This topic is not my strong suit. I was a Hulk Hogan fan as a kid, and that's where the fandom kind of ended when I got older. Okay? I had the Hulk Hogan wrestling buddy that stuffed, I don't want to say stuffed animal, but you know what I mean? Like, it was probably about 2-3 feet long, big. It was Hulk Hogan. I had the Nintendo. I still have the Nintendo video game with Hulk Hogan on the cover. I mean, that was my wrestler. But I know we've got more educated wrestling fans that are listening. Is Hulk Hogan on the Mount Rushmore? And is he the GOAT? Is he the GOAT? A lot of you say no. A lot of you saying he's on the Mount Rushmore, but a lot of you saying he's not the GOAT. So I want to hear from you again. You guys are the experts. You guys and gals are the experts. So let me know. We talked some Brewers too. We'll probably get back some more Brewers talk as we get set for a 3-game series against the Marlins. And the fun event tonight with the Alumni Home Run Derby. Who you got for to win that? Brawny, Fielder, Hart, Gomez, going to go with the pitcher and Yo-Yo. Tony Plush going to come out, Nyjer Morgan, and win this thing. Who do you got? Give me your picks. Okay, 715-830-1912. We're going to do a little AJM Automotive, Pump the Brakes Full Throttle in just a little bit. But let's kick off this hour, little cream of the crop, if the button actually wants to work. I mean, you got Macho Man Randy Savage doing the cream of the crop, so I think, you could do a little cream of the crop in honor of the legacy, wrestling legacy that is of one Hulk Hogan. So I mean that definitely would be probably my cream of the crop, just to give a little tip of the cap, and then you could throw in a little Ozzy Osbourne and music wise, and we were just talking about that the other day. I mean, in the sports sense, Crazy Train's probably, for me at least, top 5 sports/stadium song of all time. So I mean, you got a couple cream of the crops right there. So you throw that in there. Definitely put that in there. That would be probably my cream of the crops. And then bottom of the barrel, it's kind of the opposite. They say it happens in threes, but man, this week we lost some peeps. We lost some peeps. Dang, this has been a tough week in that. If I had to throw another one in there outside of that, who cares if Aaron Rodgers threw an interception at training camp? Why is this a top headline? It's still a top headline if you go to ESPN.com. Rodgers opens up with a pick. Who cares? It's training camp. We've got enough going on in baseball, the WNBA, other stuff. This is a top headline? No, it should. Who cares? Who cares? Dumb. I guess that's more of a grind my gears thing, but that's just weak putting that over there. So that's my cream of the crop, bottom of the barrel. If you want to make your picks, you can go ahead and do so. We've got Jake saying Hulk is the Mount Rushmore. There is no debates about he is the GOAT. I mean, Stone Cold and Undertaker are awesome, but Hogan clearly. So, all right. Got somebody saying the Hulkster is the GOAT. Where are you all at on this? Okay, continue to send me your thoughts. Couple of you chiming in on the Mark Murphy. Definitely the Titletown District is the lasting legacy for Mark Murphy. This is from Mike. Mike also says, I do think fans have unnecessarily been too hard on him during his tenure. Not sure if they had super high expectations or what they were expecting from him in his particular role, but I thought he has done a fantastic job and will be big shoes to fill for the next president. Adam with the text saying recency effect, but it is the draft. Never thought we'd see an event like that in Green Bay, and he was able to pull it off. And I do think he has gotten some unfair criticism in the last few years as president from Packers fans. Yeah, I mean, you look at it from 08 to 2025, and maybe for some people, you kind of put it that way. I mean, that's 17 years at the job, and there's been a lot of events, things happening during his tenure. Bam, right away, Summer Favre, his first year. Has to deal with that. Has to deal with that storm of whatever you want to call it. I mean, that was a lot to have to deal with in your first. Hey, welcome aboard. Welcome on the job. Deal with this. Had that. And then, you flash forward years later, not as dramatic, but still dramatic in different ways. The whole Rodgers thing. So, had that going on. But then you look at the adding seats at Lambeau Field. The upgrades that we don't see on a regular basis as fans. I'm talking about like the upgrades in terms of the player seat. Obviously, the locker rooms we just saw. But, you had the parking garage for the players, the underground parking, the indoor, the new training stuff inside the stadium, indoor field and such that they work on. That sort of stuff. A lot of updates there. Stability. It's kind of weird to say that, in 17 years, he only hired one coach and one general manager. Now, I know there's going to be some fans that are going to sit there and say, well, probably should have, moved on from McCarthy earlier and such. And, that could be a debate and such. But stability-wise, one coach, one general manager he hired. That was LaFleur and Goody. You look at ownerships, and this is to kind of compare it because he is the closest thing to an owner that Green Bay has. No offense, I'm a fellow paper holder owner too, but he is the closest thing to a franchise owner that the Packers have compared to the other ones. We never dealt with ownership drama, that ownership drama that we see from other teams, whether it's a Jerry Jones type or just like a Dan Snyder type when he was with Washington. We never had to deal with stuff like that. We never had to deal with a Woody Johnson type with the Jets. Those type of ownership dramas. It never happened. And I don't ever want it to happen. We've been incredibly spoiled. We talk about the quarterback play. I'm of the age where I have been incredibly spoiled, and I hope to be incredibly spoiled for the rest of my life. Odds are that's probably not going to happen. Hopefully I live a long time. But odds are probably not going to have continued, solid, good quarterback play for the rest of my life. But as of right now, I have been incredibly spoiled. But I've also been incredibly spoiled because of the leadership at that Green Bay level. With Bob Harlan. With Mark Murphy. I mean, it's essentially been those two guys the majority of my life. So when we talk about, people my age, 40s, late 30s, yeah, we've had a good there where it hasn't been. We've had some good representation. We've had a good president, CEO / if you want to call it owner, whatever. We've been spoiled in that department too, and I hope that continues. The draft, of course. I did, when I was at the Chicago draft in 2015, never would have thought Green Bay would be able to hold it. Even after a couple of years, and you started to hear Green Bay want to do it. I'm like, yeah, are they going to be able to? They did it, and it was because of Mark Murphy being adamant in his pursuit of trying to get the draft. But I will say, the draft doesn't come if Titletown isn't there. I fully believe that. The draft doesn't come if Titletown District isn't there. And I know he gets knocked from some fans for making it too corporate. Maybe getting away from that small town feel. Hey, I miss it. I know I keep saying it. I miss tailgating in a Kmart parking lot or an abandoned Big Lots parking lot. I miss those times too. I miss taking the exit, turning on Lombardi. After you go under that underbridge, boom, right there's Lambeau. You know what I'm talking about. That exit, right? Take it, turn right on left on Lombardi, go under the that bridge there, and then boom, Lambeau Field just pops out. You don't see it anymore with the development of Titletown. I miss those days, but I'm also a realist and realize it's 2025, and this is what you kind of have to do in this modern day, especially in a small market like Green Bay. If you haven't been to Titletown districts, if you haven't walked around there, it's impressive. It's very cool. Maybe some people don't like it because it takes away from that smaller town feel, but I think he made the right decision and the right choice by doing all that stuff. So you got a couple stock sales that was under his watch, under his tenure too. So that's how I became a paper holder owner for Green Bay, was because of one of his stock sales. Mentioned the added seats to Lambeau Field and that, but there's been a lot. There's been a lot that he has done during his tenure. Yeah, he's been maybe kind of goofy at times, goofy pictures, sliding down the hill at Arians, or maybe in the last few years, being a little bit more open in some comments, especially when it comes to Aaron Rodgers and such. But when you look at it from an overall picture, the dude has done, I think, a very good job as the leader of the organization. And I think we've been spoiled. I'm excited to see what Ed Policy does, taking the reins over. He's got a ton of football experience, a ton of, soundboards that he can go to, knowledge, been with the organization for many years, was a big, Murphy, we're giving him a ton of credit for Titletown, but Ed Policy was right there. He was right a part of that too. I'm excited to see how he takes the baton now and what he can do, or how he's going to leave his mark. Bob Harlan left his mark, his fingerprint all over that franchise. Mark Murphy has done the same. All positive stuff, a lot of positive stuff. Now, I'm excited to see what Ed Policy can do, or what he will do. I don't want to say who's done a better job, Bob Harlan or Mark Murphy, because I don't think that's fair to either one of those guys, because they've all been presented with different challenges and all had to overcome different things. But both have done a fantastic job, and I hope Ed Policy continues that. So, all right. Hey, quick break, but again, Express sounds like they might this week. Okay, here's another cream of the crop. Say this. The Eau Claire Express, a couple times this week, making ESPN's top 10. Last night, walk-off home run over La Crosse. McGuire Turner with a 3-run shot in the bottom of the ninth to pick up the victory against La Crosse last night. So the Express back on the road tonight, going against La Crosse, and they're going to be on the road against Thunder Bay Saturday and Sunday. They will return home to Carson Park next Tuesday. So that is another cream of the crop. Shout out to the Express, making top 10 ESPN a couple times this week. One for a catch and one for a walk-off home run. Not too bad. All right, We'll take a quick break. Plenty more, though, coming up. AJM Automotive, Pump the Brakes, Full Throttle. It's coming up next. What's on the grill for this weekend? If you're not quite sure, I'll make it simple for you. Just head on over to Mike's Star Market on the west side of Eau Claire and grab yourself some brats. Many different flavors of brats to choose from at Mike's Star Market. Or maybe you just want a nice hand-cut steak to put up there. Oh, doesn't that sound good right now? Help you out over there. Got some chicken. You got a bunch of different stuff that you could be choosing from. Or if you're making a road trip, maybe you're doing some travel ball and such, you need some snacks for the road, stop by Mike's Star Market and grab some snack sticks. I highly, highly, highly recommend the Bloody Mary beef strips. Those are my absolute favorite. They got you covered for a bunch of different things over there. So head on over to Mike's Star Market, west side of Eau Claire today. All right, let's do a little AJM Automotive Pump the Brakes Full Throttle this morning. Thank you to those of you who sent over some Pump the Brakes Full Throttle questions since we're riding a little solo on that one this morning. So let's jump right into it. Pump the Brakes Full Throttle. Jordan Love will be a top 5 quarterback this season. Now, I appreciate the text, Mike, for this one. I guess to not make it too complicating, top 5, I mean, we could go, top 5 in touchdowns, top 5 in yards. I think just kind of like a general census, like if we were to come up with our top 5 quarterbacks, you know what I mean? Like just like, oh yeah, like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to pump the brakes on that for now. I'm top 10, sure. But top 5, I mean, again, you got Mahomes, you've got Lamar, you've got Josh Allen, you've got Joe Burrow. You know, those guys over there. Top 5 will be tough to crack. I'll go top 10, no, for sure. But since you asked top 5, I'm going to pump the brakes. I'm going to pump it. So, let's go to the next one here. We're got to scroll through some of these texts. The Brewers, this is from Jim, the Brewers will finish the season with the best record in Major League Baseball. As much as I want to say full throttle on this, I am going to pump the brakes. I'm going to pump the brakes on it. Gosh, I hope I'm wrong. I would love to just say full throttle, pedal to the metal, baby. Let's go. But I'm gonna slowly pump the brakes on that. How about that? I'm gonna do a little brake tap. You know, just tap a tap there. We've got a lot of games left to be decided with this thing. Let's ask this question again at the beginning of September, maybe, and see where they're at. Right now, I'm just going to just tap that brake. Tap that brake. Pump the brakes, full throttle. Hulk Hogan was one of the most influential sports figures in the last 30-some years. I'll full throttle that because, okay, so I'll use myself as an example. It's because it's the only best way I can describe this, or the only way I can do this. Again, I'm not a big wrestling fan. I don't watch wrestling. Okay, I don't. As a kid, a little bit. And I would call myself as a kid as a Hulk Hogan fan. But the thing is, I'm not a fan, but I know who Hulk Hogan is. And I know about, matches with Andre the Giant, Superdome. You know those things. And I feel like if I'm not a fan of a particular sport, but I know about that player or that someone, I know about them and I know some of the accomplishments and I know what, they did and just some of the superstardom and what they meant to that organization, sport, or whatever. Yeah, I would say he's up there for sure. Because, and maybe there would have been somebody else if I was a youngster that could have came up or I would have gravitated towards and such. I don't know, but yeah, I definitely would. I mean, Real American song, the NWO, and all that sort of stuff. So I know about this stuff, and I wouldn't call myself a fan. But the fact that I know about it, I think kind of tells you the superstar that he was. So yeah, I would definitely say that in the last 30-some years. For sure. Full throttle on that. Full throttle. Let's do pump the brakes, full throttle. This is from Chris. Pat Murphy is a top 5 manager in Major League Baseball right now. Ooh. So let's do this as like a power rankings, right? Power rankings we could change week by week sort of thing. That's how power rankings work. Baseball, they update them weekly. Obviously, the NFL, they update them daily or weekly. So right now at this minute is Pat Murphy a top 5 manager in Major League Baseball? Full throttle. I'm full throttle on. How my question would be then, how can you say he's not when he's led his team to the best record in Major League Baseball to this point on July 25th? And you look at the roster, no position players made the All-Star team. One pitcher initially made it, Freddie Peralta, but then he couldn't pitch, so they added another Brewer. And then Mizorowski makes it after just 5 starts to his career. And here we are with the Brewers with the best record on July 25th in Major League Baseball. How can you not say right now, if we use it right now at this very minute, and if that's the question, yeah, I'd put him top 5. I don't know how you can't. The job that he has done this year, I mean, last year was amazing, and he ends up winning Manager of the Year. But let me throw this back to the rest of you Brewers fans. Are you more impressed with the job Pat Murphy is doing now than compared to last year? Has what he's done up to this point in the season, has this impressed you more than the job they did last year? Now, we'll see how the season finishes off, of course. And that answer could change. But right now, when you factor in everything, oh man, it's hard to say that it hasn't been more impressive. A lot of games left to go here, but man, it is really hard to not say it's been more impressive right now. But yeah, to answer, right now, top 5, sign me up for that. Full throttle. I don't know if a lot of people would agree with me on that, but if we treat it like power rankings, yeah, he's up there. Pump the brakes, full throttle. Badger football wins more than 4 games this year. Well, I think the line was at 5.5. I'm going to full throttle and say they just win 5. Not much more, but I got 5. I think it was it Joel Klatt the other day said 3. I think I saw that somewhere that he was looking at like 3 wins for the Badger football program. Now I know there's been some spins, with the Big Ten media days and such. And, now there's some, talk like, hey, they got a lot of youth, a lot of really young stud players coming in and such, and it's going to be good. But here's to counter that, I guess, would be, okay, that's great that they got some younger guys coming in and, they could be really good. But with the whole transfer portal, that's not a guarantee they're going to stay there. I can't get on board anymore with the whole, well, we got some young guys coming in and they're going to be really good, might take a year or such, but the future is really good. There is no more future in college sports. It's about now. There is no more future. You can't build for the future anymore. Not with the way the transfer portal is. You can't. Guys are going to leave if they don't get enough playing time right away. You got to factor that in. Now, maybe some of these youngsters are going to get playing time right away, and maybe they surprise a lot of people and such. But if you're going with the program, or you're going with the narrative or the mindset of like, hey, we're building for the future here, I think you're doing it wrong. I don't think you're going to be lasting very long. There's no more building for the future in college sports. Not if these athletes can leave after a year. That's gone on the wayside. And it stinks. So, this is my thoughts on it. But Off the brakes, full throttle. The Packers will have a 1,000-yard receiver. That is from Travis on our texting line there. I'm going to pump the brakes. I think we answered this question, or we did this question maybe a few weeks ago, and I might have said full throttle. But I'm going to pump the brakes on this one. Now, I don't know if this came because Albert Breer has been visiting camps now. So you've seen visiting training camps and doing some write-ups and such on that. And he was just at Packers training camp. Albert Breer, who does the Monday Morning Quarterback now. And he had a little bit of a note on the wide receiver. And I'll just read it right here. The interesting thing regarding the offense as a whole comes with a number of young players at the skill position who've shown promise. They have 3 receivers on rookie deals: Dontavian Wicks, Romeo Doubs, and Jane Reed, with 55 catch seasons on their resume, and another uber talented guy at the position, Christian Watson, coming back from a torn ACL. He'll probably miss the first month of the regular season, though his rehab is moving fast. They have third-year tight ends Tucker Kraft, who could ascend to an elite level at the position, and Luke Musgrave. They have 2 more receivers, Matthew Golden and Savion Williams, who were drafted in the top 100 in April. The question: can someone become a real difference maker? Kraft's probably the closest. Wicks, if he can make a little bit more impact downfield, has the potential to get there. Dobbs has had a strong offseason too, so the competition among this group for playing time, and in some cases contracts, should be heated through the summer. So they got options. I think the question is, do they have a lot of good options, a lot of maybe consistent options? That's probably the question at hand. So, yeah, I'm going to pump the brakes. I just think I don't think we're going to see 1,000-yard. Right now, I'm going to say no. I think we'll get a guy like maybe the 900s. So if I had to pick, Kraft or Reed. Although I think I'm still going to say this with my gut. I think Romeo Doubs has a really good season. I think he has a solid season. Let's do one more. Where did it go? I got to scroll through here. Pump the brakes, full throttle. 3 out of the 4 NFC North teams will make the postseason this year. I don't like doing postseason picks in the first week of training camp, but to answer this, I will full throttle. I think this is the best division in football. I think a lot of these teams are going to beat up on each other in division games. I look at the rest of the NFC South. I see maybe one team coming out of there. Saints, no. Panthers, no. Although I think they'll be better this year. Atlanta is all going to depend on Michael Penix Jr. He's got some weapons and such, but and then you got Tampa. I think Tampa's probably the favorite. You look at the NFC West. You could throw in, I think, the Rams. I don't know about the 49ers right now. I think they're kind of hovering. Then you look at the East. It's Philly. You got Washington in there. Dallas, to me, is a question mark. Just I don't know how the new coaching staff is going to work in. But the only thing that would make me say no that 3 out of the 4 in the NFC North would make it is that could they just beat up on each other quite a bit. And that could be where only 2 make it. But right now, I'll say full throttle, 3 of them make it. So, all right, that's your AJM Automotive Pump the Brakes, full throttle. We got to take our final break. We've got picks coming up here. Final call for any picks for the Alumni Home Run Derby. I will just say it's majority between 2 hitters. That's where the majority is at on this. And it's probably no surprise on who the 2 are. But final call for your submissions. We'll hit that up and wrap up things coming up after these quick words. Coming up tomorrow, Saturday, July 26, 2 p.m. at the VFW Post 305. Join them for a meat raffle to help send a local girl with cerebral palsy to Easter Seals Summer Camp. This young girl is named Shannon, and Easter Seals Summer Camp is where people with disabilities get to enjoy swimming, boating, and just being outside. In addition to meat raffles, they'll be featuring basket raffles, 50-50 raffles, as well as food and drink specials. So, you got nothing planned tomorrow. Head on over to the VFW Post 305 for the meat raffle starting at 2 p.m. so we can help send Shannon to camp this summer. That's a cool thing that VFW Post 305 is doing. That's awesome. Shout out to Donna and the entire team and staff over there for doing something awesome for the community. Really cool. All right, let's wrap it up with some picks here. So the Alumni Home Run Derby is this evening, and the top two vote getters were between Prince Fielder and Ryan Braun. Ryan Braun edging out Fielder right now. I would say it's probably about like 55-45. I didn't sit there and count on my fingers and toes how many votes came through, but that's probably where I would guesstimate. About 55-45, edging it for Brawny. And that was my pick. If you were listening yesterday for when Brian and I were doing it, or if you maybe listened to it on the podcast. When, by the way, if you missed it yesterday, it is up on the Man Cave podcast, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee. Make sure you stop by Hy-Vee, load up this weekend for some groceries, or maybe you're doing, again, some traveling. You need to load up with some snacks and such. Go grab yourself some Man Cave Light, some Dan Good Burgers to have a little grill out. Our good friends Hy-Vee has you covered, and you can save some money at the gas pump. But that is up on the Man Cave podcast. Brandon's trade primer, Brewers trade primer, as the trade deadline coming up next Thursday. But we also make some more picks regarding the Home Run Derby. So if you want to listen to that, listen to it before the Home Run Derby is tonight. But yeah, I'm going Brawny for tonight. I'm hoping I get to watch it. We got to do some traveling for some baseball and that. But I'm hoping I can tune in and be able to catch it, because I think that's such a cool thing. So I hope I can. I'm sure I'll be able to watch it later on, but I want to watch it live. So, but again, the game, afternoon game. I know it's rare for a Friday afternoon game, but tune into your radio dials, because maybe you're going to be still stuck at work or in your vehicle. 105.1 FM, 790 AM, 310 is the first pitch. Coverage will begin about 35 minutes prior. Freddie Peralta is on the mound. All right. With that, let's make some picks. And remember, on Friday, when we do our picks, we're making them for the series. Okay, we're making them for the series. So let me bring it up here, because I just got sidetracked, because now ESPN put out a baseball trade deadline thing. The top 8 teams desperate to make a move. I'm just curious, are the Brewers on there? No. Oh, interesting. Okay. Miami. No, I'm going to save that one. Arizona, Pittsburgh. So Arizona looks like they're starting to sell off. It's at Pittsburgh. I'm going to go Pittsburgh, actually. I'm going to roll with the Pirates in this one. Colorado at Baltimore. Give me Baltimore. This should be a good one. Philly at New York. I'm going to roll with the Phillies. I'm going to go with the Phillies. Dodgers at Boston. Ooh. Could this one help shape what Boston's going to do by the trade deadline? I'm going to go with the Dodgers for this series. Tampa Bay at Cincy. Seems like Cincy wants to add on, but I'm going to go with the Rays. Toronto at Detroit. So Toronto coming out hot last night, picking up an 11-4 win against Detroit. I think Detroit bounces back, though. Actually, I'm going to say split on this one. I'm going to cop out. San Diego, St. Louis, Padres at the Cards. Ooh, could this be another one, depending on maybe what the Cardinals do by the deadline in that? I'm going to go Padres. Cubbies, White Sox. I'm going to go Cubbies. Braves, Rangers. I'll go Rangers. Cleveland, Kansas City. I'm going to go Kansas City. Athletics, Houston. Give me Houston. Seattle and the A's. Give me Seattle. Mets and Giants could be a sneaky, decent one here, too. I'm going to go with the Mets, even though they're traveling all the way across the country. Washington and Minnesota, I'm going to go with the Twinnies. And then finally, Marlins, Milwaukee. I think it sets up nicely for the Brewers for their pitching staff. Peralta tonight, or this afternoon. Quintana tomorrow night. Woodruff in the series finale. Don't overlook the Marlins. I don't think the Brewers are going to overlook the Marlins. I think they've got the right mindset right now in that clubhouse. I think their focus is sharp, narrow, day-by-day approach, game-by-game approach. I don't feel like this is a trap series. I don't feel it. I'm going Brewers to win this series. I'll say 2 out of 3. But don't overlook the Marlins. Got to take it by game approach. Don't think about that Cubs series starting on Monday. I want to get into that Cubs series still leading the division. I don't want to be playing from behind and trying to catch up to them in that series. So, get the job done against the Marlins. And boy, Monday morning is going to be electric as we get set to begin that series, isn't it? Ooh, boy. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be fantastic. Express, too, by the way, they're going to be on the road this weekend. Lacrosse, Thunder Bay. Lacrosse tonight, Thunder Bay for Saturday and Sunday. All right, let's kind of recap some of the things that we hit up this morning. We talked a lot about Pat Murphy, a different Murphy, Mark Murphy. Mark Murphy's tenure as president ends today. So we will have a new leader for the Packers, Ed Policy. So a big thanks to everybody who chimed in on the lasting legacy of Mark Murphy. And yeah, the majority of people noting Titletown District as the main thing that they will be thinking about, or when they think about Mark Murphy, that's the number one thing that'll kind of stand out to them, which I would agree. I think it's Titletown District. There's a lot of stuff, but I think the Titletown District led to, them holding the draft and such. So, and they're in good financial space too. Remember, the Packers are the only NFL team required to release their financials because they're a publicly owned team. So they're the only ones that are required to release it. So if you do basic math, which a lot of people have done in the last couple of days, you kind of know how much the NFL made and shared revenue and such. And well, they made a lot. they made a lot right now. Packers said they received $432.6 million in revenue sharing, which means if you times it by all the teams, the NFL brought in a record $13.8 billion in revenue in the last fiscal year. But they're also, if we keep it to the Packers side of things, you've got, they got like this fund. I almost call it like an emergency fund sort of thing. They got like $600 million in that fund. Murphy did say that during his tenure, the Packers have invested $675 million into Lambeau Field and the team's facilities, and they still have a boatload in this fund here too. So, yeah, the Packers corporate reserve fund grew to $579 million, up from $536 the previous year. So they've got that fund. He has put the team in some solid financial stability. So we'll find, it's the shareholders day. We know how those meetings go, but we'll see if they do anything different with it being Mark Murphy's final one and officially passing the baton on to Ed Policy and that. But, we'll see. Day 3 of training camp practice also going to be underway later on this morning too. So we hit that up. Thanks to everybody who sent over your thoughts on the Hulkster. Yeah, a lot of you have him on your Mount Rushmore. There is a back and forth about whether he's the GOAT or not. That's more of the debate here. A lot of you throwing out different names and such, but I did see a theme too for a lot of you that said he wasn't my favorite wrestler, wasn't my favorite person, but he is on the Mount Rushmore. So I caught that from a few of you on our texting line. So What else did we obviously talked Brewers leading up into the series with the Marlins and such. So trade deadline now officially less than a week away. We'll see if the Brewers are going to be a team that makes a move this week. Are they going to make a move this weekend? Are they going to make a move before their series against the Cubbies? Will it come during the Cubbies series? Remember, they have an off day on trade deadline day, the 31st. Don't know if that would factor in, but we'll see what if anything transpires. But the dam kind of broke a little bit yesterday with the Diamondbacks trading off their first baseman. A little bit of a crack. Maybe that crack will grow more this weekend with more teams, maybe getting a little bit more antsy to try to make some moves, trying to jump in front of other teams. Suarez is probably the big fish out there. He's probably the big one. You got a lot of teams reportedly interested in him. Will one team just get so antsy? Because all reports, and rightfully so, the Diamondbacks should be asking for a lot. They should be asking for a as one report said, quote, a ton. They should be right now. You got that many teams interested in him? Ask for the moon. Takes one team to do that. One team to give you a ton of players, prospects, maybe overpay for him. But will one team get a little too antsy and say, we want this guy so bad, we don't want him to go anywhere else. All right, we're going to sweeten that pot a little bit. Honestly, that would be the player that would surprise me the most if the Brewers somehow acquired him. If somehow the Brewers acquired Suarez, that would probably be the player that would surprise me the most. I would love it. I'd be curious to see who would all be involved in it because I do think it's going to be a huge price tag, especially for a rental player. But there's no question he would provide instant power in the middle of that lineup. And then I'd be curious how the lineup defensively would look. But I guess, you figure that out after the time comes. I don't think it happens. I'd put my chances on that happening very low. But that would be the player I'd be really surprised if somehow the Brewers were able to come away and acquire. There's no question. They've got some young talent in their farm system that they can part with, but will they actually do that is the question. Maybe we'll find out this weekend. I think probably we'll find out. We'll see some trades from the Brewers. I personally think beginning of next week. I don't think we'll see anything this weekend. But who knows? Who knows? Big thanks to Dr. Crow for joining us for a little inside the training room. Good stuff there. Talking about Justin Fields with training camp beginning and such. And some other injuries that have been kind of going on. Christian Watson. I know everybody's kind of excited about him, seeing what he's been doing and such. We talked about that with Dr. Crow. So that'll be up a part of the Man Cave podcast a little bit later on this morning. So if you missed it, you want to check it out, it will be available on there wherever you listen to your podcast or wherever you get your podcasts, like Apple or Spotify. Also available on YouTube. So, but again, reminder: Brewers game 3:10. Coverage will begin 35 minutes prior. Tune into the radio dials 105.1 FM and 790 AM. Freddie Peralta on the mound. So get her done, Brewers. Win this series, take 2 out of 3, and then on Monday we can really hyper focus on this Cubs series. I want to get to that series still in first place. I want to be the team that the Cubs are chasing. I don't want to be the chasee. I don't want to be the one. I don't want to be the team that's chasing them. I want to be the team with the target on our back. I want to be the team that plays from up front, from out in front. So please get this series against the Marlins. At least take 2 out of 3. All right, I won't be too needy and say a sweep, but take 2 out of 3, especially with the pitchers you got going for this weekend series. All right, just do that. Have a good weekend. Enjoy. I think the weather's going to be okay, right? Probably going to be a little warm, but enjoy the weather. Enjoy the weekend. DP Dance are up next. We'll be back at it next week. Same place, same time, 6 a.m. Chat with you all then.